A Moment with Dr. Audreyann Moses.
Good morning. This is Dr. Audreyann Moses, and welcome to Dr. Audreyann's Moment. Today we're going to talk about mental game when it comes to how things hurt us and loss. Because a lot of times we have loss, and it's not always just a human that has passed away or something. It could be any type of loss. It could be loss of a job, loss of a home, loss of a relationship, any of those things. But they all affect us in the same basic way. Just, our emotions are different, as opposed to if we lost a family member or a best friend or something like that. So we're going to talk about mental game and how we process these things. So what's important right now? You look at things, you look at what it is you have that is important to you. And again, like I said, I'm not talking about people. I'm talking about things. I'm talking about your job, your home, your car, your whatever. In biblically, the Bible says we should not have idols. And so I'm not talking about idolizing these things. I'm not talking about saying that, my house is so important that nothing else matters. That's not what I'm talking about, because your house should never be that important. Your car should never be that important that nothing else matters. However, if you lose your home, your emotions are going to go through a process until you are prepared to accept that and then move forward. And so we're going to talk about all of those things in the process of grief, how grief works when we have lost something. Okay? And even in losing people from our lives, not necessarily by death, it could still be by a broken relationship. Mourning, when we talk about mourning and we talk about grief, we just automatically assume that mourning is because of a death in someone's family, your parent or your child or your sibling or your favorite aunt or whatever, or even a pet. We say that mourning, we are mourning over this person, as opposed to grief. And people look at those in different ways, but they still think it's the same. It's not the same. Mourning is not the same as grief. And outside people look at it differently. So I just want to explain that real quick before we go forward. Mourning, people feel you should mourn for a certain amount of time after a relationship has been broken. You get a divorce. So people say, you should mourn over this. You should be sad about it for a certain amount of time and then move on. So that's when you hear your friends saying, oh man, you need to really move on. Find you another woman. There are plenty of women in the world. Find another one. She didn't work out, find another one. It could be 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years, but that process is up to you. That process is not up to your friends. So you should not go out and start hunting for another woman or hunting for another man because your friend says it's been long enough, you need to get back out there. You have to make that decision on your own. If you lose your job, of course you're going to want to find another job right away. But you may decide, if you have handled your finances well, you may decide, well, you know what, I'm not going to go out here and find another finance job or another, whatever your field is. I think I'm going to, do something else for a little while, make a little money just to keep myself above board, but I'm going to take a break. If you decide to do that, that's on you. That's not on your friends. So you cannot have your friends saying that, stop moping around, why are you doing this little thing when you need to be wherever you were working. Grief. Grief is when the hurt is deep and the hurt is causing you to have some more of an emotional response to whatever it is. Again, grief can last as long as it lasts. It's not up to other people to determine how long your grief should last. It's up to you and your situation, whatever the situation is. Thank you, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Welcome back. We were talking about the difference between grief and mourning. So, is there a difference between the two? And there is, even though it looks like it's a small line between the two. Mainly, mourning is when the event actually occurs, and people, let's talk about the death of a loved one. We're mourning over it, but in the midst of the mourning, we still have to get work done. We still have to, plan the services. We have to call this one and that one and the other one and make sure that the paperwork is done. And so we are grieving, but at the same time, we're trying to get through all of this. And then at the service, so people are coming up and they're greeting you and they're telling you how sorry they are, and all of that is during the mourning process. Well, once that is over, then people tend to feel that your mourning time is done. You've mourned, you mourned when it happened, you mourned during the service, you mourned, a week or two afterwards. Now, okay, you should be all right by now. We all know that that is not true. Grief can last a lot longer because grief is the process of literally getting over what has happened. So whether it be a death of someone, whether it be the loss of a job. So let's talk about the loss of a job. And people do not relate the loss of a job with grief, but you should. And the reason for that is you've been working at a job for 15 years and you're good at what you do and you love what you do. it helps you to be happy to wake up in the morning to go to that job, that career, you really love it. And then you walk into, your office or your building, wherever it is you work, and you are greeted with information that that job is closing down and now you're not going to have a job. So now you have to go through the process of trying to find someplace else to work. You love where you were working, you love the people that you worked with, but you can no longer work with them anymore. Now you have to find someplace else. Or you go in and you have been doing a wonderful job and you get a new boss, somebody buys the company and they tell you they don't need your services anymore. And so they let you go. And they call it downsizing, but really they're firing you. And I've been through that. So you have to now find somewhere else to work while you're grieving over what you have lost. And there's going to be anger, there's going to be hurt, there's going to be heartache, there's going to be all of those things that you have to work through, and we're going to talk about each one of those separately, that you have to work through because you got downsized from your job that you have loved all of these years. While you are looking at those things, while you're looking at mourning, while you're looking at grief, during mourning you're doing all the work, you are trying to find, your mourning because you got laid off, you got downsized. Immediately you have to start looking for another job because this wasn't planned. So you have to start looking for another job. You have to do all the things. You have to make sure everything is taken care of in your home and in your life while you're trying to find another job, while you're trying to maybe teach somebody else how to do your job. And so are you remembering to take care of yourself, or are you neglecting yourself? Are you staying up too late at night? Are you getting up early in the morning? Did you stop going to the gym or walking or whatever it is that you normally do for exercise? Have you stopped doing those things because now you are going through these emotions of being laid off and having to train somebody else to do your job and having to find another job before it's time to pay mortgage again? All of those things are going through and you are having to deal with them all at one time while you are taking care of yourself. Because if you don't take care of yourself, then many physical things can happen, emotional things can happen that people will say, well, if he hadn't lost his job, if she hadn't lost her job, she wouldn't be sick now. Well, the reason she or he is sick now is because they stopped taking care of themselves while they were dealing with this trauma that has happened in their life. So self-neglect is really important to deal with when you're grieving. Grieving is a longer period of time. So during that longer period of time, you're grieving the loss of a person, a pet, a home, a relationship, whatever it is you're grieving the loss of. Are you taking care of yourself during that time? Are you, are you getting enough rest? Are you eating proper? Are you exercising proper? Are you Are you going through to church? Are you continuing with your relationship with Christ? Or are you blaming God because of your loss? Those things are what's important that you have to start learning how to deal with. So we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. Be right back.
Do you like Italian or Sicilian cooking? Well, check out Olive Branch Mediterranean and Italian Grill. They have a wide variety of calzones made with their handmade dough. So whether it's steak, veggie, ham, or Italian, just to name a few, you can't go wrong. They also have organic salads, Olive Branch kebabs, gyro, beef, or chicken shish kebabs, Olive Branch specialty pizzas, Olive Branch pastas. Yes, I know you're getting the picture. Olive Branch Mediterranean Grill. Dine in or take out. You can't go wrong. Let Olive Branch cater your next event. Stop by today. The Olive Branch is located 109 Birch Tree Drive, Greenwood. They're open Monday through Saturday from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call them today, 864-407-4100. That's 864-407-4100. That's the Olive Branch.
Mac Hardy, come on down to McCormick Tire and Oil. We open Tuesday through Saturday from 7:30 to 5. And we specialize in oil, tires, and brakes, wheel bearings, CV axles. And but military discount is every day. And on Wednesday we have Senior Citizen Day. So come on down to McCormick Tire and Oil. We got everything you need. Thanks.
Welcome back. What if you are working on trying to deal with all of these things? You're trying to deal with your emotions, you're trying to deal with trying to find a new job, or how are you going to survive losing this relationship? Or if there is actual death, a death of a person in your life, how are you going to deal with that? I remember years and years and years ago, this was back literally in the 90s. I had a really good friend. He and I had been like sister and brother since the 70s. And he contracted AIDS. And this was back in the 70s when AIDS exists, but they didn't know what to do with it. And so he was sick for a while. But he was still functioning. He could just still do. So it was like sometimes we would forget, that he had AIDS. Well, I got a call one day from his friend, and I was like, why is he calling me? From Jerry. His name was Jerry. From Jerry's number. So I called and I found out that Jerry had a massive heart attack and had died. I mean, just like out of the blue. I had just talked to him a couple days earlier. So it took me a long time to get over that. It took me a long, long time. My grief period lasted forever. Now, I still had to do things. I still had to function. I still had to do the things I had to do. And on top of it, his family chose to leave his friends out of the funeral. They didn't let us know when they were going to have the funeral. They didn't do any of those things. They just left us out of the situation completely. So that made it even harder. And he and I, we had been together. Well, we were in the Navy together, so we had been together from like 19 or 20 years old until he died. We were all in our late 30s when he died. So it was a long time, and then we was just left out of the process. So that made it even worse. So I had to, while I'm continuing on, because I was still in the Navy, so while I'm continuing on with my life, taking care of my children, I would still have bouts of depression, sadness, because I was missing Jerry. And it was funny because every time we would write each other back and forth, because we ended up in different areas of the world, and we would write each other back and forth, and whenever I got a letter from him, I would stick it in whatever book I was reading at the time, because I read all the time. So I would stick it, it became a bookmark in whatever book I was reading. So years after he passed, I would open up a book, and there it would be a picture of him, or a letter that he had sent, or something. And when that happened in the beginning, it would really make me sad. But as time went on, I would be like, oh wow, Jerry, you know, and it would make me smile. So as time goes on, your heart mends and your spirit mends so that you can think about those people or think about that relationship without being bitter. Now there are lots of talking about relationships. There are a lot of people who remain bitter on purpose when a relationship breaks. That's their issue. And there's nothing you or I or anybody else can do about that. And if you are that person, you are the only one that can fix that. Because what you are doing is you are allowing your life to stop moving forward because you are determined to continue to be angry about a broken relationship, regardless of what the reason for the breakup was. And when you do that, anger is cancerous. You know, anger will continue to eat at your soul, eat at your spirit. And you may go to church, but you are not of church. You are not of God. If you are remaining yourself angry because of a relationship that did not work out. And you're not even thinking about the possibility that God never wanted you in that relationship in the first place, which is why it did not work out. So you have to mend yourself, and you have to stop taking that arsenic that you are taking, because that anger is arsenic in your soul, in your spirit, in your body. It's not hurting the other person. The other person has gone on with their lives. And you are remaining angry, making yourself sick, causing yourself high blood pressure, causing yourself diabetes, causing yourself heart issues, you know, because you refuse to let go of that situation that has long passed. It wasn't for you in the first place. So we have to remember, where is the anger coming from? Where's the distress coming from? Where's the depression coming from? Is it something that we are continuing to put on ourselves because we don't want to let it go? Or is it something that we are still working on trying to let it go? You know, you just have to think about that on your own and make that decision on your own, that you need help, legitimate help, to allow yourself to heal and to move forward. And that is a part of what self-repair is. Self-repair means that I am going to start doing things that I need to do in order to make myself better, regardless of what the situation is that has caused me this grief. So we are going to continue on in a few minutes. Be right back. Welcome back to Dr. Audreyann's Moment. We have been talking about the difference between what is mourning and what is grief and how we deal with it. So I want to just go into, we started out talking about mental game, and I never did really tell you what I wanted to do with that. So mental game really is how you talk to yourself. So, you know, we were talking about a breakup. You know, we had this breakup, and so we're trying to deal with it. The way we talk to ourselves has a lot to do with how we overcome it or how we continue to poison ourselves with it. Example, the breakup occurred because of a difference of opinion about, you know, how we should raise our children. And as we're talking to ourselves about what the breakup was about, if we are honest with ourselves, we would say, okay, Audreyann, you broke up with Todd because Todd does not believe in raising the children in a religious atmosphere. And so you broke up with him because of that, blah, 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 blah. But is that what we normally do? No, what we normally do is I will bash Todd. You know, if I had known he was a heathen, and if I had known blah, 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 that's what we do. And as we do that, that starts to seep poison into us. You know, that starts to seep poison into us, and then we'll start coming up with other things that Todd may or may not have even done. You know, so we'll start making up things, and we're continuing to poison ourselves. So we are not getting over this breakup. And as we try to go into other relationships, what do? We bring that mess into the relationship with us. So because we're continuing to talk negativity in our head, and that negativity is seeping into our spirit. And as it seeps into our spirit, we can no longer function like a normal human being. We are angry all the time. So we have to just make sure that we are not doing that. We have to make sure, okay, even if it was infidelity in the relationship, we cannot continue to be angry to the point where we cannot even have a decent relationship with someone else, because we're always assuming if that person is not in our eyesight, then they're doing something with someone else, someplace else. That's what happens when we allow our mental game to become negative as opposed to keeping it positive. Along with that, as I said earlier, we start making ourselves ill. Ill physically, ill spiritually, ill emotionally. Because we have decided that it's more important for us to be angry. It's more important for us to continue to make sure that everybody in the world knows how horrible Todd is, or Jane, whichever, that we cannot even give ourselves an opportunity to heal and move forward. So there is no joy in our life. And we're okay with that, basically. We have become okay with not having joy. But what we are also doing is causing misery to other people. Because every time they see us, we're wanting to talk about how horrible Todd was and how you can't trust another man, you can't trust another woman. You know, so I'm just fine by myself when we know you're not, when I know I'm not. So we have to make sure that we continue to talk positive to ourselves. Allow ourselves to understand that whatever happened with Todd, and let's move on. You know, let's heal ourselves. Let's heal our relationship with God. Let's heal our relationship with other people so that we can move on, so that we can have a good relationship with someone else. I want to read this to you. It says, your words and your attitudes are critical. You get to decide if they are negative or positive. You get to decide if you become stagnant or if you allow yourselves to embrace the new life before you. You get to decide, not someone else, and definitely not Todd or Jane. You get to make that decision as to whether or not you are going to move forward, or are you going to stay stuck during that time of misery and grief and whatever. You're going to stay there and you're not going to move forward. If you decide to move forward, then you start learning how to cope. You learn coping skills. You start learning to accept what happened, but also accept that what happened does not have anything to do with how you move forward in the future. You'll be able to move forward in the future. You'll start learning how to pray. You'll start learning how to meditate, to heal yourself, and to be able to know that as you go on, it'll work fine for you. Thank you, and we'll be right back. about grief and about mourning and how we're going to allow ourselves to deal with that, but still continue to take care of ourselves, move forward in our new life, because it is going to be a new life. Whenever you have a loss, you are starting over. And because now you have to move forward without that person, you have to move forward without that home or without that relationship or without that job, whatever it is. You have to learn how to move forward in it and be happy in your new life while you are able to think about the old life without becoming angry, without going back into grief, without going back into depression. Sometimes you need help with those things. Sometimes you do need to talk to a life coach like myself, or talk to your pastor or somebody that can help you to pull those tools that you need together so that you can move forward. And it's no shame in that. There are times when everybody needs to gather up some tools that they can use to help them mentally and emotionally and spiritually move forward. In that, we have to also learn that it's up to us to be kind to ourselves, to be good to ourselves, to talk positive to ourselves as opposed to talking negative. We all say, what am I going to do without my mama or my dad or my sister or my whatever? We all say that. We all say, how am I going to make ends meet? Because I lost my job and now I have to get a job and I'm going to make less money. Those are normal things to think about, but they are not normal for us to live there. We have to move forward out of that, because if we keep talking to ourselves in that way, it becomes negative talk. And that negative talk causes depression. And we don't want to go into depression. We end up, having all other things wrong. So I have one more thing I want to read before I close. Tools for self-repair. Therefore, be at peace with God, whatever you conceive him to be. Whatever your labors and aspirations are in the noisy confusion of life, keep peace in your soul. With all its sham, drudgery, and broken dreams, it is still a beautiful world. Be cheerful, strive to be happy. Use those tools to let yourself move forward in your life with new friends, with new job, with new home, with new relationships. You'll be able to do it and you'll enjoy it. Have a blessed life, and I will see you on the next segment.